In a desperate attempt to return to power, Old Lin publicly challenged the president of El Salvador. Bukele initially seemed to be going according to the Mara leader's plan. However, the president's retaliation went beyond what anyone could have imagined. Bukele's revenge against Asmara would have gone far. This will mark the end of the largest gang in Central America. Stay until the end of the video and find out. Before starting, leave your registration with the like button and subscribe to our stories. They will surely captivate you. Now, press the bell so we can begin. After the direct confrontation between President Nayib Bukele and Old Lin in CECOT prison, the campaign against gangs in El Salvador intensified. Bukele, determined to eradicate the Mara's influence in the country, ordered an unprecedented search and arrest operation. Specifically directed against gang members, the operation, known as the Mano Dura Definitiva, was designed to be swift, effective, and brutal. The deployment of police and military forces was massive. Troops and armored vehicles patrolled the streets of cities and towns where the gang members were known to operate. Helicopters constantly flew over the most conflictive areas, using advanced surveillance technology to track gang members. The raids were carried out with military precision, with teams of security forces breaking into homes and hideouts at any time of day or night. The slogan was clear: no gang member should escape. Authorities had lists with names and photos of suspects, and each capture was a trophy to show off to the public. Newscasts broadcast the raids live, showing the gang members being arrested and taken handcuffed to police vehicles. Bukele wanted everyone to see the power of the state in action and understand that there would be no truce in the deals. The officers showed no mercy toward captured gang members, bordering on the inhumane. During the raids, the officers showed no mercy. The orders were clear: intimidate, humiliate, and punish the gang members from the moment of their capture. The prisoners were beaten out of their hiding places, dragged through the streets, and thrown into police vehicles, with no regard for their well-being. In the temporary detention centers, the situation did not improve. The gang members were subjected to brutal interrogations to extract information about their operations and contacts. Physical violence was a common tactic. Beatings, kicks, and the use of tools to inflict pain were part of the process. The prisoners were deprived of sleep and food, kept in overcrowded, filthy cells where desperation and fear reigned. The transfers to the CECOT mega prison were another episode of terror for the gang members. Chained and piled into trucks, they were transported for hours under the blazing sun. With no food or water, the guards made sure to maintain an atmosphere of constant oppression, with shouts, insults, and blows that never stopped. Many arrived at the CECOT already wounded and weakened, barely able to stand. Upon arriving at the CECOT, the reception was even more brutal. The prisoners were forced to run through a kind of gauntlet formed by guards armed with batons and sticks. Each step toward the prison entrance was accompanied by blows and kicks. The already hellish conditions inside the CECOT worsened with each new group of prisoners that arrived. The overcrowded cells, lack of hygiene, and the constant threat of violence made life in the prison hell. Meanwhile, Bukele continued his media campaign, using social media and the media to showcase the results of the operations, assuring the public that the government was taking drastic measures to restore peace and security. Images of captured gang members and the destruction of their hideouts became symbols of state power. Bukele presented himself as the strong and determined leader that El Salvador needed to free itself from a yoke of gangs. The transfer took place early in the morning of July 15th. The sky of San Salvador was covered in a thick fog that hung over the city. A lugubrious and oppressive atmosphere prevailed on the day of the transfer of the captured gang members to the CECOT, an event that had been planned with military precision by the Bukele government. The objective was to transfer hundreds of gang members from temporary detention centers to the mega prison in an operation that would demonstrate the power of the state and the inevitability of the fate that awaited the gang members. From early morning, a column of armored vehicles and police trucks formed outside the detention centers. The streets were cordoned off by security forces, and helicopters hovered over the route to ensure that there was no interference from the handcuffed gang members, their faces cut down. 2 were taken from their cells and taken to the vehicles. Each step was accompanied by the screams and blows of the guards, who showed no compassion. The caravan began to move slowly, escorted by an impressive display of police and military personnel at every intersection. The streets were clear, and the few curious people who dared to leave their homes watched with fear and curiosity as the long line of vehicles advanced through the city. Fuck had given them clear instructions. The transfer should be seen as a demonstration of force and the government's determination to wipe out the gangs. Inside the trucks, the gang members traveled in inhumane conditions, crammed against each other. They could barely move. The heat and lack of ventilation made the air unbreathable, and many began to faint. The guards showed no interest in alleviating their suffering, but rather they used it as a tool to break the prisoner spirits. The route to the CECOT crossed some of the city's most conflictive areas that had been under the control of the Mara for years. The caravan advanced slowly, with armored vehicles opening the way and troops maintaining surveillance. Occasionally, a gang member tried to resist or provoke the guards, only to be brutally suppressed. On the spot, blows and screams were a constant soundtrack of desperation that accompanied the journey. As the caravan approached the prison, tension mounted. The prisoners knew the worst was yet to come. They had heard stories of the conditions in the CECOT, the violence, and the terror that reigned behind its walls. Many knew they probably wouldn't get out alive. The guards, for their part, were prepared for any escape attempt or resistance. Bukele's message was clear. No gang member should escape or survive without paying for their crimes. Finally, after hours of travel, the caravan arrived at the gates of the CECOT. The mega prison stood like a fortress, its high, gray walls impenetrable, reflecting the light of dawn. The guards opened the gates, and the vehicles began to enter the complex. The gang members, exhausted and terrified, were taken out of the trucks and taken to a search area. The procedure was meticulous and humiliating. They were stripped of their clothes and thoroughly searched, and given prisoner uniforms before being led to their cells. The old boundary of their cell heard the noise of the caravan and the screams of the new prisoners arriving. They knew their power was crumbling with each new transfer. The network they had built over the years was being dismantled piece by piece. Desperation and hatred grew inside him, fueled by the helplessness of watching his men be subjected to torture and humiliation. The registration and cell assignment process was brutally efficient. The new prisoners were lined up and numbered. Their faces showed a mixture of fear and resignation. The guards beat and shoved them, ensuring an atmosphere of constant terror. Each prisoner was taken to their individual cell, small, windowless concrete cages where only more loneliness and despair awaited them. Bukele, meanwhile, watched the operation from a control room. Surveillance cameras showed him every detail of the transfer, each of the gang members suffering. For him, this was a victory, a demonstration that his government would stop at nothing to eradicate the gang plague. Every prisoner who entered the CECOT was another step toward the pacification of El Salvador, a country that, under his rule, leaving behind the fear and violence. By the way, if you enjoy the video, we invite you to give us your like and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. We continue the beginning of the new era of the CECOT. After the arrival of the new prisoners of the CECOT, the atmosphere inside the Megac prison transformed even further. Bukele, determined to definitively break the power of the Mara gang, implemented a series of rules and measures that would make life inside the prison a true hell for gang members. These policies were designed to eliminate any hope of resistance or rebellion, plunging the prisoners into a spiral of despair and submission. The new rules were announced with coldness and precision. The prisoners were called into small groups to prevent any attempt at a riot. They heard the guards read the rules in a stern voice. Number 1, zero tolerance for violence. Any act of violence, no matter how small, will be punished with prolonged isolation. It didn't matter if the conflict was between prisoners or directed at the guards. The response would be swift and brutal. Number 2, Forced labor. All prisoners would be assigned to forced labor within the prison. Tasks would range from cleaning and maintenance to the construction and repair of infrastructure within a prison. The workday would be 12 hours long, without breaks, and under the constant supervision of armed guards. Number 3. Restricted communication. Communications with the outside world would be extremely limited. Family visits would be allowed only once every 6 months and always under strict security conditions. Letters and messages would go through a rigorous censorship process, ensuring that no relevant information would be transmitted. Number 4. Food rationing. Food rations would be reduced to the minimum necessary to sustain life. The quality and quantity of food would be deplorable, designed to physically weaken the prisoners and keep them in a constant state of hunger and exhaustion. Number 5. Isolation and surveillance of prisoners. Those considered dangerous or showing signs of leadership within the gang would be isolated in individual cells. Without contact with other inmates, the cells were equipped with 24-hour surveillance cameras constantly monitored by guards. Old Lin watched helplessly from his cell as these new measures destroyed what little remained of his men's morale. The days passed in a monotony of work, exhausting hunger, and constant surveillance. Any attempt to organize or communicate plans of resistance was quickly suppressed by the guards, who seemed to always be one step ahead. The punishments were exemplary and public. Prisoners who broke the rules were taken to a central courtyard where they were beaten in front of the other inmates. These punishments not only served to discipline the offenders, but also to instill fear in the rest of the inmates. The prison population's every cry of pain echoed off the concrete walls, reminding everyone of their position of absolute defenselessness. Bukele, for his part, closely followed the implementation of these measures. He supervised the daily reports from the CECOT and occasionally visited the prison to personally inspect the conditions during one of his visits. He addressed the guards and staff with firm words. These men must understand that their time of terror is over. There is no place for violence or crime here. Every day they spend in these cells, they must remember that they are paying for their crimes against the people of El Salvador. The message was clear, and there would be no truce, no mercy. Old Lin knew that any hope of escape or of regaining power was an illusion. Every measure, every rule, was designed to destroy any vestige of the Mara structure. And so we come to the end of this video. If you liked it, I invite you to watch it. Give us a like so we can keep making more videos like this. Also, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. I wish you a great day until next time.